Hello, friends. Welcome back to that clearance shelf at your local toy store. I'm your host, Jeffrey the Giraffe, and today we're going to customize some Batman figures. That's right, folks. This week we're going to customize not one, not two, but three of the same Batman figures. Now you're probably asking yourself, why in the world would anyone buy three of the same figure? Well, there's actually two answers to that question. One is because I'm a crazy person, and two is because they were on the clearance shelf for $3 a piece, and they're normally $20. Now, these figures are pretty cool, but I wouldn't say that they're $20 cool. Before I get into what I'm going to be doing today, let me give you a little bit of background for this figure. This is actually the armored Batman from the Frank Miller graphic novel, The Dark Knight Returns. This figure already has a lot of impressive detail to it, but what I'm going to do with two of these figures is actually just make them look a little bit more realistic, just add some weathering to them. The third figure, I am going to customize it to make it look like it's from the movie Batman vs. Superman. Now, the funny thing is that the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel is a heavy influence on the Batman vs. Superman movie, both with the visuals and from a storytelling perspective. So I'm going to take one of those figures and try to make it look as close as I can to the movie version. Not quite sure how it's going to go. For the two figures that I'm going to customize to look the same, I'm actually going to keep one for myself and the other I'm going to give away. That's right, folks, pretty soon you could be the proud owner of a customized Batman figure from your pal Josh. If you're interested in receiving this figure, all you have to do is tell me in the comments below who your favorite actor to have portrayed Batman is. That's it. And after it's done, I'll wait a week and then I'll pick a random person from the comment section below and I'll send it to you. Unless I know you, then I'm just going to give it to you because I'm not going to spend money on shipping for no reason. So, stay tuned, it's going to be a fun episode. The first thing to do for any of these customization projects is to check for branding, and apparently these figures don't have much. You might be able to see in the packaging there that there's some extra pieces. That's because these figures are part of a series that if you collect all of them, each one comes with a different piece for a Doomsday figure. So right now I have 3 Doomsday heads and 3 pelvis sections of Doomsday also. So if anybody's in need of those, let me know. I decided to start with the Batman vs. Superman version of the figure first. The main reason being that I'm going to have to primer this entire figure, so I wanted to get it done first so I can let the paint dry. But before I can paint it, I have to remove all the extra material that I don't want on there. So as you can see, I used my X-Acto knife to cut off the cape and to cut down on the collar material. For the little bat blades on both the gauntlets and the boots, I'm using a pair of wire cutters to snip those down to size. To add some weathering texture, I'm using both a piece of sandpaper and I'm just adding some random cuts all over the figure with the X-Acto knife. This little trick here I actually saw on a Cosplay Chris video. Some areas that you mask off from paint are a little bit hard to get tape on there, so you just shove some sticky tack in there. I am just applying one coat of regular old primer to the entire figure. For the cape, I didn't want to just use the standard rubbery plastic one that came with it. I wanted to use some fabric, so I found some black craft felt and cut it down to size. The cape from the movie is not a pure black, it actually has some silver tones to it. So I'm just using this hammered silver spray paint to achieve the right tone and texture. Speaking of texture, I'm just once again using some sandpaper to achieve that on these other two figures. For the weathering itself, I'm just using my standard mixture of black shoe polish and powdered graphite. I applied this stuff pretty heavily, and instead of just wiping it off right away, I gave it a good bit of time to dry. And I did the same thing with the guns. Now that the paint was dry, it was time to start on this figure. I had never done it before, but that sticky tack trick actually worked really well. The next step is to apply this metallic silver paint to each of the armor sections. Nothing too special here, I'm just using the same metallic paint that I use in a lot of my other videos. At one point I was a little bit concerned about that missing cavity on the back of the figure, but the cape is going to be covering that, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. The armor on this figure is not exactly like the armor from the Batman vs Superman movie. And that's okay, because I wanted this figure to kind of be its own thing. It's supposed to be more of a mashup between the two styles, with the overall shape and size of the armor itself matching the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel, and both the color pattern and the weathering effects reflecting the armor from the movie. Overall, these metallic paints have added a lot to this figure so far, but adding that weathering is going to give it so much more character and depth. After the shoe polish and powdered graphite mixture was completely dry, I used this scour sponge dipped in really hot water to remove the mixture from mostly all of the exposed areas. I was cautious to leave a lot of the dirt and grit in all of the little folds and crevices. After scrubbing down both of the figures, I dried them thoroughly with a shop rag. Now both of these guys are ready for some silver dry brushing. I thought that it would be kind of neat to try two different dry brushing techniques on these figures. So for this one, I'm using a silver Sharpie and just applying some weathering on most of the exposed edges of the figure. This kind of gives it more of an appearance of the paint chipping off the edges, rather than the armor having a lot of scrapes and scratches all over it. This technique I actually learned from watching one of the Punished Props Academy videos. It's the first time I ever attempted it myself, but I'm pretty happy with the results so far. Just so you know, this Sharpie isn't anything special, it's just a silver Sharpie that I picked up at Michael's. That one's not looking too bad. For this other figure, I'm using some of the silver rub and buff that I've used in some past videos. I've had kind of mixed results with this stuff so far, but I'm pretty sure that I had negative results because I wasn't really using it in the proper manner. But for adding some scraped metal effects, this stuff works really well. It is a little bit messy to work with, but cleanup is very simple. I'm trying to hit the same exposed edges that I did with the other figure, but I'm trying to add some extra scrapes along the way. Compared to the other one, this one turned out really well also. Now that the metallic paints are dry, it's time to add some shoe polish and graphite to this other Batman figure. I once again applied this stuff pretty heavily, and I let it dry completely before scrubbing it off with this scour sponge. I had to be a bit more cautious with the scour sponge on this figure, because if you hit any area too much, it's going to chip away some of the paint. Once both the figure and the gun were scoured, I thoroughly dried them, and then once again used the silver rub and buff to apply some extra detail. Anytime I have applied multiple layers of weathering like this, I have achieved a better looking end product. It just adds that much more depth and realism. For the eyes, I'm just using this flat white model paint. At some point in the future, I might go back over the eyes with some glow-in-the-dark paint, but for now they're just going to stay the standard white. To attach the cape, I'm using some Loctite super glue gel. And that's it. Let's see what these figures look like all together. I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with the end results of these figures. I'm very satisfied with the silver Sharpie weathering effect on this figure. It is definitely a technique that I'm going to use again in the future. And the silver rub and buff did not disappoint on this figure. However, my favorite of the three of these figures is absolutely the Batman vs Superman mashup figure. Overall, I am very pleased with the results. If you'd like to specify which one of these figures you'd like to receive, just mention in the comments Sharpie or rub and buff. Just put it right next to your favorite actor and I'll get it. Well, that does it for this episode. I'm pretty happy with how these guys turned out, and I'm definitely very happy with how this one turned out. Remember, if you guys are interested in receiving one of these two custom armored Batman figures, just leave a comment below telling me who your favorite movie version of Batman is, and I will pick a name at random in a week and I'll send you one. I hope you guys enjoyed watching, because I enjoyed customizing these figures. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to like and subscribe below, and check out some of my other stuff. I'll have some pop up here and over here. I've got a lot of cool stuff for you to check out. I'll see you next time.